Now, this video is about the things that I wish I would have done before studying herbalism so that I could have got the most out of the course. But this information is also great for the general public and those who want to educate themselves more about their body so that when they're engaging with healthcare or where things are going wrong, they have a bit more of an understanding of what's going on. So let's get started because you know I don't waste time. Now, the first one is to learn the basics of anatomy and physiology. Now, why am I asking you to do that? What's that got to do with herbalism? It's got to do with everything. Now, we have to have a basic understanding of the body to see how, one, the body works, but also how the herbs might interact with the body. I know when I started, I didn't even know what the thyroid was or where it was located. I didn't know what the adrenal gland was or where it was located. I didn't even know what the hypothalamus was. So I believe that especially when you're going to do a course where the tutors are like, you know, been in the industry or been working for 20 years, who have been doctors and so on, if you have a basic understanding of anatomy and physiology before you go in, once you go in and you start doing the learning to level up that, you can ask like really important questions. So what I mean by this is if you're going in at level 1, the course will help you get to level 5 and you'll be asking level 2, 3, 4, 5 questions. But if you go in a level 4, you can go and leave a level 10 because you know the right thing to ask and you have the knowledge to build on. You'll have the basic foundations to build on. Now, it's not as hard as you think that might be to learn the basics of anatomy and physiology. Here are my tips. So firstly, 2 YouTube channels that I kind of lived off of when I was studying herbalism. And that is Crash Course, and the presenter I believe is Hank Green. And he has, the playlist is Anatomy and Physiology. And he has a number of videos that you can watch on the nervous system, the immune system, the digestive system. And it's so fun with cute little animations. Literally, I was watching the video out of enjoyment because I thought it was really fun and I was learning at the same time. The other one is the Dr. John Campbell. He has some great videos on the cardiovascular system and the digestive system. My advice would be start off with the Hank Green, the fun stuff, just to get the basic idea of it, and then go on to Dr. John Campbell without the animations, which has a little bit more information and detail that you can build off the Hank Green videos. Now, if you're not really, I don't want to watch videos, I want a book. One of my favorite books, actually, when it comes to anatomy and physiology, this was my absolute go-to. I have worn it out. My sister's a mental health nurse, and this was the book that she had when she was studying or was recommended when she was studying. And so when I started herbalism, this was the book that, you know, she gave me and I've had ever since. Now, I don't know if you can see much of the colors, but it is in plain English. If I ever suggest a book, just know it's plain English and simple to understand because I cannot deal with complexity and unreasonable big English to mask the fact that they have no clue, or the big English it's just not accessible. I struggle with that. So this is plain English, and what you have is the blue section is about the various areas of the body, and this is what this organ is, this is what this organ does. And then the red bits are when things go wrong. So the name of the disease, what area is affecting, why it's gone wrong. And literally, I have so much faith in this book, I'm just going to pull a random page and read a line. The effects of aging on the endocrine function. And then what you have is the learning outcome. After studying this section, you should be able to describe the effects of aging on the endocrine system. And then you've got the adrenal cortex section. Osteoporosis caused by estrogen deficiency in postmenopausal women is reviewed in chapter 16. Reduced secretions of androgens in women after menopause may be accompanied by changing hair patterns. For example, increased facial hair and thinning of hair and scalp. And this is chapter 9 on the endocrine system. Was that clear? Yep, it was very clear. And then you have the red section, which usually refers to a disease. So we've just done the endocrine system. So I'm going to the red section of the endocrine system. And this one is disorders of the parathyroid gland. So also one thing I like is they've also got pictures. I always like pictures and animations. So you see what the disease looks like. So disorders of the parathyroid gland, you've got the learning outcome, and hyperparathyroidism. This condition is characterized by high blood calcium levels, hypercalcemia, and is usually caused by a benign parathyroid tumor, which secretes high levels of parathyroid hormone. This results in the release of calcium from bones, raising blood calcium levels. The effects may include polyuria, polydipsia, formation of renal calculi, anorexia and constipation, muscle weakness, general fatigue. Now, if you don't even know much science, all you really have to do is probably research what parathyroid hormone is, and maybe renal calculi. But generally, what I've just read makes sense to you, doesn't it? So for me, this was my go-to book when it comes to anatomy and physiology. I know they've come with other editions, but 12th edition is what I got, and it has. I love it. It makes absolute sense. Oh, come and see me come to Kwashiorkor. So yeah, so this is the book that I would use. So if you're learning anatomy and physiology, it gives a basic understanding of the human body and what it looks like when things go wrong. But I think that everyone needs to have that understanding. So even if you are not studying herbalism, this is still very useful to know. And so next time you're on YouTube, check out the YouTube videos. If you've got the chance, you can get this book secondhand and then have a little bit read through. It's just very basic, plain English, which is my best friend. The next thing is to go out into nature and have the experience of the plants, know what the plants look like and what they are. Now, when I studied herbalism, one thing that I found difficult is that the plants they were talking about, most of them I've never seen before, or I didn't even know what they look like in real life. And I struggled with that, especially I was in the class and everyone was like, yeah, I know that plant, I know that plant. And I was like, yeah. So I would always say start off with your own area. When you're walking around, see if you could identify a cleaver, see if you could identify the comfrey, see if you could identify the different types of nettles, because you've got the stinging nettle that a lot of us know, white dead nettle, purple dead nettle. Do you know these nettles? And sometimes one thing that you could use to accompany you to do that is foraging books. So I've got examples of 3 here. So there's this one. This is my least favorite of the ones that I have here. If you're really a beginner, I could say start with this. So you've got the foraging notes, you've got the poppies, how to identify common uses, and then you've got a page for notes, and then there's a little recipe section here. But even foraging for honeysuckle, you've got how to identify common uses, pictures, and then at the back, I've seen some, look, you've got examples of recipes and how you might use these plants. One thing I must say is never, ever eat a plant unless you are 2 billion% sure that you know what that plant is. Because the difference between something poisonous and something edible sometimes is very slight. You can have the 2 plants next to each other and they're extremely similar. So please do not ingest, or even, like, some of them don't even touch, or breathing, anything that you are not 100% sure what it is. Okay, now, my favorite foraging book is this one, Harrop's Wildflowers, a field guide to the wildflowers of Britain and Ireland. And I like this for a number of reasons, but I'm going to show you. So this is an example of the pages. Not only do you have the name of the plant, what I really like looking at these pictures to see where the plants are usually found. Some of them you'll see like they literally cover the whole of the UK. Some of them, they're little sections of the UK. I find that really interesting. And then you've got different, literally this page is thick, and you can already see on this page we've got like 4 images. So just imagine how many plants this covers. The other thing I like is got pictures of the leaves themselves, because sometimes you could identify the plant by the shapes of the leaves and the looks of the flowers and so on. So I love the fact that it's got the leaves and defining factors of the plant. And then it will tell you if it's an annual, the height, when it flowers, whether it's native, and also the altitude. So I think that considering how much is fit on this page, there is a lot of detail here. So again, this is an example of the different types of leaves for you to have a look at and so on. So I really like this in terms of foraging. Now, the other thing is to actually join foraging groups. There are many all over. I know that in where I was based, Hackney, we have HackneyHerbal that do foraging walks. I've been on a couple of mushroom walks. I will link some of the examples of where you can join in the description. But nothing beats actually physically going to see the plant and seeing the plant in all seasons. It's one thing seeing it in flower, because a lot of these pictures will show you what it looks like when it's in flower. But if, for example, you want to harvest the roots in autumn when it's finished flowering, or when you want to harvest the seed, do you know what the plant looks like when it goes to seed? So I think that practical going to see the plants and having experts tell you how to identify it, where you can physically go and see and be sure of what you're looking at. So try and join some foraging groups to get that practical experience of dealing with the plants. Now, related to that, there's also opportunities to volunteer. Again, there's one in Walthamstow, is it CommunityApothecary? Where, you know, they have a garden that they look after, so they help harvest and they make medicine and they do workshops. So join some of these. So not only are you seeing the plant when you're growing them, but you're also learning the practical application when you're making medicine. So I'll put details of the examples of the ones that I know as someone who was based in London, that you could also attend if you are London based. But do have a look at the foraging groups and the community herbal workshop groups that are around you. Some of them are free, some of them you have to pay a small amount, and they vary in price range, so there is something for everyone. And even if you're not going to study herbalism, it's always good to know about the medicine that's around you and how you might be able to use them practically in your own first aid, family first aid, and so on. The next thing is to decolonize your herbal learning and narrative. So learn about other cultures, be intentional about learning about other heritages and other cultures. And it's for two reasons. Because one, I feel like, actually it's not I feel like, the colonization element in this space is extremely strong. It is very strong. I experience things that I haven't experienced in a long while. Like, I find it really weird that we're using certain herbs that we know are not indigenous to the UK, and the people that are teaching us about the use are not, for example, the Native Americans who were using it a long time, but we're learning from the eclectics who were involved in their colonization. And this, like, why am I reading passages from the eclectics and not from the Native Americans? Do you know what I mean? Like, we're learning about herbs from all over the world and we're not acknowledging how we are getting those herbs, number one. It's very interesting how you're now using those herbs as a result of what the indigenous people have said, and then you turn around and said what you're saying is invalid because you didn't do a double-blind randomized controlled study. So you want that foundation. And that now leads me into the second point, which is sometimes some courses can focus very heavily on the science of the plant, reducing the plant only to its constituent bits, and can be very reductionist in its approach. So I feel like learning about the cultural elements and learning about the traditions, because everybody has a tradition, everybody has a culture. You can start with your own family and you just put a foundation and fill out what you might be learning potentially. So the science element of it sometimes can just make the plant be what its constituents are. And sometimes a plant is about the whole plant and not its constituents. So in terms of helping you to decolonize the information that you have access to, here are a list of Instagram pages that you can follow where you can learn about different herbal cultures around the world. First of all, Indonesia, Balinese herbal medicine, taught mainly by Anga, and he spoke beautifully at the BIPOC Herbal Conference, and that's Bhaktifarm. I'll put the Bhaktifarm.bali and I'll put the details next to me. Then if you want to learn about Chinese, Vietnamese medicine, DrLinhLove, Caribbean herbal medicine, as well as Mexican Mayan herbal medicine, Sister Yaya, who's currently based in Mexico. And then you've got African American herbal medicine, Abril from Beauty Herbs and Tea, Puerto Rican herbal medicine, Veladyaorganica, Maori herbal medicine, and that's Haleytialisaintuitive, and Decolonisation in general by Unapologetic Herbalist, Claudia Manchanda. Here's her Instagram, as well as Cherrelledouglas, who I've heard speak, and she speaks with vim and is very unapologetic in her approach. And then we have the Instagram page BIPOC Herbalism. I think that kind of says what that page is about. It's focused on herbalists from BIPOC background, which is Black, Indigenous, people of color, which I believe is like an American term that they use. I think ours is, are we using BAME? I don't even know what we're using right now. I'm not concerned. So just make sure as much as you can to learn from source. So learn from the people where this medicine was indigenous to them before the power structures took that medicine, over harvested it and made it not available for the natives. Anyway, let's go on to the next one. And then grow your own herbs, growing your own plants. You go foraging, you've looked in books, but there's so much that you learn by growing and seeing the plant in all its stages and having to take care of it, making sure it's free from disease, making sure like it's happy, it's watered and in the right position, because some like sun, some like shade. There's a relationship you build with plants. But actually just the learning itself, because I remember when I was growing broccoli and I saw the little florets, because I'm used to seeing the ones that you see in the supermarkets, which are quite big. So I saw the floret come up and I was like, yeah, I'm going to leave it to grow. The video about it is just here. And then it started to go to flower. I was so confused, like what the heck is going on? Why that? Just the thing that I was just expecting it to grow big, but it had reached the stage and then went into seeded, and I saw what broccoli flowers look like for the first time. I have learned so much, even growing valerian, because the valerian root smells like rotten socks, and just growing it and getting that smell. It's just very much a learning experience to see the different types of plants and how they grow. Now, the two plants that I would suggest you start off with, because they're relatively easy to grow but also very useful, is lemon balm, but put it in a pot or like a box, because it's a mint and it spreads like wildfire. So if you put it straight into the ground, it's going to take over your whole garden, and I am not responsible for the aftermath because I've warned you. The other thing is calendula. Calendula, if I was to have a top 10 plant list of things that you must have in terms of your herbal apothecary or even your family herbal first aid kit, calendula will be in it. It is a brilliant plant, but also relatively easy to grow. So I'll also grow calendula. So those will be the two plants that I will probably start off with. And then maybe a vegetable like tomato or something, or kale and lettuce undercover, because the slugs love them more than you do. So those will be the ones that I'll start growing with, and just having a relationship with plants outside of the books. The other advice for those who are looking to study herbal medicine is to save more than the course fees. The amount of books that I bought, I kind of semi-blame myself because I do have an addiction to books maybe. But the amount of books and the extra funds that I had to put out after studying the course was quite significant. So if, for example, your course is 8K, save like an extra 2K, because the books are going to be expensive. Then you're going to have to do clinical hours and have to travel to those places. You might have to stay for a festival, and those things can be £100+. Some of these textbooks are £40+. Like the Principles of Phytotherapy, that was like, yeah, that was an expensive book. So I would always save more than the course fees. And last but not least, but very much related to this point, if you are intending to go into business, make sure you save all those receipts, because you can claim up to 5 to 7. I'm hearing 7 years as well. So my accountant told me I could claim back up to 7 years of the expenses that you have spent on the herbal medicine course. So keep all your receipts and keep everything in order if you can, so that when you finally do qualify and you go into business, you can offset those in your expenses when you're doing your accounts. I hope that you found this useful in terms of helping you to get the most out of your course. But for those who are not looking to take herbalism any further, this is an opportunity for you also to learn about your own body, but also how to use the plants to help with your own ailments and in helping your own healing. I feel like everybody should have a basic general knowledge of herbalism. Most of the time back in the day, we used to have this family herbal remedy that works very well for us. Let's build on that. Let's work on that, where we each one of us have an idea of how our bodies work and how we might be able to use the nature around us in order to make it work better and more efficiently. Feel free to watch one of my other videos in terms of what to look for when you're studying in a herbal medicine course, how to make sure you select the right one, and also what to look for in a herbalist that you might be engaging. And don't forget that in the description, I'm going to have a list of all the community groups that I was engaging when I was studying in herbalism that you might also find useful. So take care, and I'll see you next week.